Hey everybody, I'm the Bat Otter and I'm back with Venus and the Blindspot from Junji Ito. So this story, we're going to be reviewing the title story, which is Venus and the Blindspot. This is the one that got me to get the book, check it out in general. I was always curious as to what it might be. It's a cool name, it's a cool concept. I like the very classic flying saucer UFOs, the eyeball, the entire aesthetic of it, especially the cover of it all is very pleasing to me and intriguing. So I checked it out, and let me tell y'all, I know that I've mentioned that I'm laughing a lot at these stories, and this one is no different at all. I think I laughed the most with this one because it's so absurd, and I understand that it's supposed to be horrifying, and I get the elements, but it's so over the top to me that I can't help but think that it's funny. So we start off with this girl who is a UFO researcher, conspiracy theorist, whatever you want to call them, and she has this group, and it's just a group of teenagers that like UFOs. Her dad is the leader of a UFO thing, and no harm, no foul, right? They're all hanging out, they're all having fun. It kind of teases that there may or may not be UFOs in the story. And as the story goes on, we'll see more and more what might actually happen. So here they see a UFO as she's praying to it, and all the guys are there kind of watching her, which is a little bit of foreshadowing to what's going to happen later. And as she's coming towards them, she simply vanishes. And we find out that a lot of the guys in the group, it turns out they like her. He says, I wonder when it started happening, whenever Mariko started to disappear from view. He says, weirdly, it seems like other people can see her, everyone except me and a few in the group. He says, I can't even see the person I love the most up close. And so we get a lot of portrait shots of the girl because they're all thinking about her. Because as the story goes on, it turns out that more and more of the guys in the research group can no longer see her. Now, as the story starts to expand a little bit, we end up finding out that almost every single guy in the group, which it's a group of all men, she's the only woman in the group, it turns out that it's a bunch of teenage guys that have a thing for her, and then they all aren't able to see her. So what is this group actually, right? Is it a group of people who want to research UFOs, or is it a group of guys who are there because this is the only girl that actually talks to them? It's kind of sad, but what I've noticed about Junji Ito is, just as in the first story of Billions Alone, he does kind of unabashedly, no holds barred, approach these kind of very common and very teenager relatable situations, right, where it's just a bunch of dudes. Because what's his audience probably in Japan? I can't tell you what his audience is, but I can imagine that it's a bunch of nerdy guys who are very close to the archetype and personality type of the guys in these stories. And I'm not saying anything about anything, but he writes them as very realistic characters because a lot of characters and stories are very idealized, and I don't want to say perfect, but their flaws are in their perfections. And seeing characters written like just a bunch of normal, immature teenage dudes is really funny because I'm like, oh, I know a guy like that, or I know a guy who talks like that, or something like that. It's very entertaining for me to read. And as it turns out, almost everybody in the group is unable to see her. As he wakes up, it says, ever since that time, you've started disappearing. And she's completely baffled by the whole thing. It's like, when I get close to you, I can't see you. I can't see you right now. And we're about to see that everybody starts freaking out. This is alien abduction. And what he says is it's proof because he has this mark on his head. And there's a really cool shot of an alien right here. And everybody starts freaking out. And where is it? It's somewhere around here. Here it is. You can't suddenly go telling me you love me. It's like, I don't understand what's going on. It's like, it's too much. Help me. At least hold my hand. And these dudes start freaking out about everything. Look at this scene of everybody. Where are you? Where are you? Oh my gosh. My precious Venus. That's what they're calling her. And you have the main character who's like, wait, guys, chill out. Like, relax. You guys are being completely crazy. And as we can see, the father of Mariko was very suspicious of this to begin with, because he throughout the story tells her, hey, maybe you shouldn't hang out with those UFO researchers anymore. Maybe you shouldn't do this, because he's clearly in on it. He understands all these guys aren't coming to the house to talk to her about UFOs. They're coming to the house because they all have a thing for her. And he disbands the UFO Society. The newest member, who can still see her, is all shocked. And at the house, what ends up happening, he stays late, and we find out that... I can show that, right? Yeah, that's not anything. He's wearing a skin suit. Turns out the father's a doctor. Now, that was established earlier in the story. And what he does is, through the earring that his daughter wears, he puts a chip in all these dudes' heads. And since he knows they're all infatuated with the UFO phenomenon, he knows that they'll attribute the missing time to the UFOs. And we get this really funny picture here. I'm going to enhance the strength of the signal and make it so they can't even see her from far away. And he has this comical laugh. Until we get this kid who says, oh, right before I was abducted, I was with her dad. So it turns out her dad was the one who was making them all not see her, because he was like, these dirty boys, they just want my daughter. He has pure intentions, but that are also pure intentions that are also nefarious at the same time. It must be redundancy day, because I keep on repeating myself. And after that story breaks, they begin to investigate Mariko's father about these kidnappings and about all this stuff. And the main character finds that these guys seem to be kidnapping Mariko, saying she's ours, she's an alien, and they've completely lost it. As the main guy goes to help her, they whack him over the head with a rock. He's out for the count. And unfortunately, they completely murder her beyond recognition. So it's a pretty tragic ending as far as Junji Ito's stories go, because unlike the other stories where people get eaten or people turn into monsters or what have you in a horror story, this one is very much a realistic scenario where it's just some poor helpless girl that gets jumped and murdered by crazy people. So I think that brought me a little bit back down to earth with this story and grounded it a little bit better, because it's such a real kind of thing, right? And even the expression on her face, there's on the other page, I'm not going to show it because I don't want to show every page, there's a shot of her crying. And like I said, Junji Ito's subtlety in his expressions and his very realistic depictions of emotion, I really enjoy and appreciate, and I think they add so much to the stories. And so the shot of her crying is it's very gut-wrenching, because you know that this poor kid can't help her. And of course the story ends with the dad in prison crying, and we get a shot of the chimney from the crematorium, since I believe Japanese people cremate. That's a common practice over there, more common than here in the States. And the final page, we get an interesting way to tie the story together, where from time to time it would appear as a kaleidoscope in my view. Even though my brain hadn't been able to recognize them, the close-ups of Mariko were burned into my retinas, and they now appear as after images, which I think is a very interesting way to end the story, as many of these stories are ended with an open end. And I find it interesting. Like, that's a very interesting concept that I feel like could have been expanded upon, which is my opinion on a lot of these stories, where it if they would have given it this much more, I think it would have added a lot of things to the story and the depth. But I do find it interesting, the very much more down-to-earth feeling of the main character compared to the guys who were going crazy over her. This guy seemed to have a genuine attraction to her, and now he has this curse or blessing, depending on what you would put it, where after she's gone, all of the times that he saw her are now flooding back into his memory whenever she wasn't there visibly, but his brain has it recorded. And of course we have the two eyes and this pink color tone. I like this page. I like this page a lot. Especially the movement and the rhythm that it creates here, and all the very genuine expressions that are on the girl's face. I think it's a very, very good page. So, did I laugh a lot in this story whenever I see some of the over-the-top reactions, and dare I say, realistic depictions of crazy teenage boys? Yeah, I enjoyed it. And of course, I always appreciate the artwork. So, you guys tell me what you think. I think it was definitely below my expectations. I was hoping for some aliens. I was hoping for some next level creepiness. I didn't get it, but I did get something that was definitely enjoyable. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I'll be reviewing the rest of this story here in the next couple days. Be sure to check out my Instagram. Again, that's where you can pick up these wonderful stickers. They last years. I've had it on the car. It's been through rain. It's been through snow. It's been back and forth throughout Texas, and it hasn't faded a bit. The Bat Otter is resilient. You want him on your car, and all the links will be in the description. I'll see you guys in the next one.